Hello, my name is Paul Gilbert, and I'm the CEO of Quanser. And we're back at Quanser Café, where we're talking about AI and complex modern engineering. I've been inviting a number of global leaders in education to help me unpack some of the issues surrounding how we can modify engineering programs and engineering education to try and get ready to support more complicated systems that exist in the world. You can find out more about the guests in each episode, as well as some of the projects highlighted in our conversations by visiting the links in the podcast description. If you're listening or want to watch the full podcast with subtitles, visit the Quanser Cafe on quanser.com. Today we're talking about stakeholder engagement and influence for responsible engineering education. I'll be joined by Dr. Balázs Nagy, Dr. Jane Goodyear, and Dr. Gerhard Muller, who are actively shaping how we prepare the next generation of engineers. Together we'll discuss how industries, governments, and communities are working with educational institutions to create programs that meet the real-world challenges we face today. From increasing collaboration between universities and industry to transforming STEM education for underrepresented students, we'll hear perspectives on how to build a more responsible and effective engineering education system. First up, let's welcome Dr. Balázs Nagy, who is the Associate Professor at Budapest University of Technology and Economics in Hungary. So welcome, Balázs.
Thank you, Paul. This is my great pleasure. Also representing the European Society for Engineering Education, not only my institution from home, but yeah, happy to chat with you.
Well, I'm really delighted, and I like to kind of let the audience know one of the reasons or some of the reasons why I've asked you to join, and you have almost, I think, 20 years of experience as an educator in Budapest University. You're currently the president of CEFI, which means you're intimately involved in guidance and discussions around European education. It's a European-based body, so there's lots of people that you interact with on a regular basis across the continent. And I'm sure you also go to many global conferences to learn more and discuss more. I think you're also a board member of the European Engineering, Learning, Innovation and Science Alliance, which is an alliance of higher education institutions from various countries in Europe with a mandate to define and implement what you call a common model of a European engineer. So the topic we're talking about is actually extremely relevant. So you're clearly committed and passionate about creating an environment that improves the quality of our engineers or future engineers. So this is going to be, I think, a fantastic conversation. So, I'll get right into it. Are you finding more receptivity or more, let's say, active involvement from the industry to work with you to make these changes?
I see a huge boom recently in industrial engagement towards academics, which I think is a great thing. Of course, there are different societal and market drives for that, but I see more and more industries approaching academics, trying to do collaboration, trying to get involved in their academic programs, creating their own upskilling programs for lifelong learning, for example, doing micro-credential type of programs together with universities. So I do see a lot of interest from the industrial side. I would say from the academic side, there is also different interests in this direction. For us who are a bit more embedded in the industries, we see it from the quality point of view that industries really can validate our programs and our graduates right from the beginning when designing a new program or when revisiting an existing one. But also I do see a financial aspect that we can do a lot of projects that are interesting both financially for both sides, and also interesting for the students and for the professors for upskilling. So it's really a win-win situation that we can kind of bridge that certain gap between industry and academics that beforehand existed quite strongly. Nowadays, I do see a difference in pace because industries are much faster. They work on more tighter deadlines and so on. Universities, they like to get more different aspects and approaches. When you do a new project, you're not that strict on project deadline, for example. So we have to match that part. But these are easier questions nowadays. Beforehand, several professors, they were just alone in their own academic environment with not much engagement with industrial opportunities. And when it comes to stakeholders, I wouldn't talk about industries only.
Yes.
So there is the government, obviously. If it's Europe, there are two governments already, your national one and the European. sometimes with different demands, sometimes quite aligned. So you want to go that way. You have all non-governmental organizations that have different societal challenges representing general societal demands. And then you have the regional, local society parts and their leadership. So you get a lot of approach from them, going out to do social work, but have some kind of engineering approach to different problems, regulating rivers or cleaning up streets in a way that engineers can approach. So have some automation in it, some engineering solutions. And I do see more and more of these challenges coming in. And the students, they are very open to that.
We'll be hearing more from Balázs in future episodes. Next up, I'm delighted to have with me a fellow Brit who has ended up in Canada, Dr. Jane Goodyear. Jane is currently the Dean of the Lassonde School of Engineering at York University in Toronto and has been there for nearly 5 years. Right, Jane?
Nearly 6 years.
Time flies when you're having fun.
Oh, yeah.
And Jane spent, I think, about 12 years at Massey University in New Zealand, where she was the head of engineering and advanced technology. And she there started the first degree apprenticeship program in New Zealand, which she is now bringing to Canada. And we will be talking a little bit about that today. But just in general, my excitement here, Jane, is that you are so passionate about making engineering more accessible to people. I won't go into your background. Maybe at some point you'll be able to raise some of the issues that you faced, the challenges you faced. But as a woman leader, who's come from, let's say, challenging circumstances, you've done exceptionally well, and you're an inspiration to so many people. So thank you very much for taking the time to chat with me, and I look forward to this conversation.
Oh yeah, it's a pleasure to be here always with Quanser and yourself, Paul. And again, we're talking about something that means so much to me. So I'm sure we're going to have a great chat.
I'd like to start our conversation really by kind of emphasizing the theme, which is the notion of modern engineering, and we talk about AI a lot. But one of the areas which I think is really important is how do we encourage or enhance the engagement of stakeholders, people who care and need or should be caring about the engineering education and education in general, and influence them, to make responsible choices or responsible paths for young people. One area that you're working on is the K2I initiative. So maybe you want to share a little bit more about what that is all about.
What we're trying to do with the K2I Academy is help the system, the K-12 system change. So our mantra has been bringing STEM to life, because we want to help the teachers and the influencers of young people, the next generation, understand that we're not talking about Newton's law of whatever, and or we're looking at planets and going, what the hell, we actually want to connect that theory into something that is real to that person. And so again, having the opportunity, like in a university, we deal with doing research, hard sums and all sorts of stuff. But we're doing that with real problems, with companies or situations. I have researchers who are doing amazing things, trying to help Indigenous communities get clean water, for instance.
Right.
So what we try and do is, with that real life
example,
situation, we then take that into the K2I Academy. We then work with the ministry and district school boards to actually identify schools that don't really have much resources, identify students that could really get engaged, but they just haven't had the opportunity. and we're like an innovation hub. So what we do is take on a real life situation, getting clean water to a community. We then work with our undergraduate students who are mentors, because they help translate the researchy, hard, summy bits and all that into something that, depending on the age of the students who are in the academy at that time, to translate that into something they can actually help with.
So how does this work? Do you have students from local schools, and I know you actually operate in an area which has, it's challenged financially, economically in a lot of places that around the sun. So you get students or people from grade 8, 9, or 10, or maybe even younger, coming to York University, to La Salle School, and you have a project or a challenge or some research that the young undergraduate students are then kind of interpreting or translating, if you like, to the young people. How does that work? How many kids, for example, would be coming in on a session?
Well, we've just run one, and we had 125
Wow.
underrepresented students. And again, even though that is a small amount of students, what we're trying to do is, with the programming, we're working with the Ministry of Ontario through various school boards. So for this one, we were working with the Toronto District School Board, Peel District, and York Region for grade 9 and 10 science programs, because we also have teachers involved, because we want to be able to look at that project we've done, or projects. How can we then translate that into the Ontario
System.
system, so that all kids can have?
So you're trying to bring the teachers that they experience with the students, what the undergraduate students are delivering, and I guess one of the goals is to give them more confidence into delivering these projects,
but then to create, how can I say, collateral for other teachers across the school board. And at the same time, what we're doing with these students is that they can actually get a physics and an English credit.
Oh.
So we're not just doing it just for fun. They're actually, because we're trying to, at the same time with the students who are in the academy, make it easier for them when they go back to school, because they've already earned a credit over the summer, and so they can, whatever.
I mean, this is fantastic on multiple dimensions. I mean, you've got the young students that are coming and getting excited, and we can talk about the impact of that when they go back to the school, because they'll share that information with their friends as well, I would imagine, the ones that couldn't come. You've got the undergraduate students who are doing something really valuable. They're mentoring young students, and you're developing material, or you call it collateral, if you like, for a broader experience across the whole school board. So how many years have you been doing this now?
So we started off just over 4 years, just as COVID started.
Of course, yeah, your timing's impeccable.
But just to give you some figures, we have grown to reach 80,000 plus students.
Wow.
Not just students, teachers, families, community, and that's where I come back to. It's not, we have to influence not just what's happening at the school, it's the parents.
Yes.
We've spent over 300,000 hours in virtual and in-person engagements, and because we are doing this very differently to anybody else, we've actually generated over $8 million in funding, and that is a mixture of some very forward-thinking philanthropists and ministry level.
Wow, that's incredible. So not only is this something which is really kind of hopefully building the pipeline for students to get interested in STEM and to move into engineering, it's actually been self-funding and probably providing you with a lot of money to be able to do what you need to do.
Because again, it's a system. We're trying to help the system.
So
That's why the government.
I'm looking at that number. Yeah, I wrote that number down. 80,000 students over the course of the last 4 years. That's incredible that you've been able to deliver those kind of courses to them. One question, I mean, I know you mentioned this to me before, you know, another time we were talking, you were saying that a lot of these families from underserved communities, a lot of these children come from families where their parents have never had any tertiary education. So, you know, the idea of going to higher education may not even have crossed their mind, but they come onto campus and they see what it's like on campus. Can you tell me how that's changed some of their perspectives?
I would say, and it's interesting because some of the where York University is. I mean, we're in one of the I would say under-resourced areas of the Greater Toronto area. There's challenges with the local communities. We, as a campus, we don't have gates and bars and things like that.
Yeah.
But there is that, I think, could be a perception, oh, it's not for us, even though we've got lovely grounds and people walk through and all that. So it is really lovely to speak to the parents when they come, like, to see what they've done. You can see the pride that I think some of them are surprised.
But surprised at what?
At what they've achieved.
At what their children have achieved. Oh, amazing.
Yeah, but I don't feel. I'm just thinking back a couple of weeks ago because we had we were finishing off the summer program. I don't think anybody felt uncomfortable, which is good, because that's the
fantastic.
last thing we want from higher education is to allow our local communities to just think, I don't belong here. It wasn't. And it's just lovely to see everybody smiling, you know, and going, that's amazing.
No, I mean, I'm going back to the numbers, like 80,000 students, which is very impressive. Like, and one of your goals, long-term goals, is to move the needle, right? To get more women into STEM and get a more diverse community. It's probably early days yet, but are you seeing any signs of applications or people showing interest to come into engineering, or is that a bit too early to comment on that?
It's a bit too early. I mean, this round, I saw 4 groups present out of how many there were, and I did ask, you know, what are their intentions, and some were the age of 16, some were 17. The amount that wanted to go into STEM, a lot of the women are still very much on the biological side. You know, they're very much interested. Yeah, they're very much. But to be honest with you, when I asked, did you even think about that before? They went, no. So I mean, my goal is about STEM, because the more we get a population that is just comfortable with scientific thinking and how to think more scientifically, the better I think we're going to be. So it's trying to shift the needle of having a population that is more comfortable with taking on new technologies, being able to think through who do I believe, that kind of thing. That is more important to me than trying to shift the needle just in engineering. I'm sure we will, by allowing, you know, that next generation coming out of the public school system to actually just be more open to STEM thinking, STEM ideas.
So I know the challenges they face, and I think it's the same in most public school systems, probably globally, where you have at the high school level teachers who are asked to teach subjects that they're not necessarily qualified in or comfortable with. How is the teacher's reaction been to this experience?
Well, this is what we're trying to do, you see, is because we're in our academy, we have school teachers, high school teachers, who are then creating that safe place for other teachers to be able to do it. So it is trying to bring that confidence to those who have had very limited exposure, particularly to the physical sciences and mathematics. Because not many teachers, and we always know we need more STEM teachers.
Yes.
Particularly physics and maths. But so yeah, I mean, we're in it for the long game here. We're not going to change it overnight, but we're seeing the needle shift. I mean, we're just developed an interdisciplinary course on Indigenous engineering, technology and innovation and design, which was developed with an Indigenous teacher. And we're currently testing that out with the Algoma District School Board, and it's offered in Blind River. So again, we're trying to expand.
So you're trying to incorporate what that they would do in that community, in that region, the kinds of things that they're exposed to in their lives, in the engineering or applications of engineering that would exist in their life, and bring it back to kind of a foundational educational level to help them understand how things work. And by linking it to something which is authentic to them, that makes it really valuable.
And then, you know, once that's tried and tested, then the ministry would then look at that to say, oh, this is, you know, something that could be offered to other schools in that situation.
Amazing work, Jane. And I look forward to catching up with you in one of our next episodes. To conclude today's conversation, I'm happy to welcome back a guest from our previous episode, Dr. Gerhard Muller, who is Senior Vice President for Academic and Student Affairs at the Technical University of Munich. We picked up our conversation on some of the challenges that exist around how engineers develop their communication skills and understanding of the world as a whole so they can engage with stakeholders in a better way.
Yeah, I think, well, one part is, of course, the education thing. And also there, I think challenge-based learning is an important tool. And there we have various formats to do that. We also have formats like, which are called Think, Make, Start, where the students in a very short period of time try to shape a solution for a problem, a tangible solution for a problem, and present it to experienced stakeholders from practice, who kind of then reflect to them on their capabilities to present, to think, and to shape the topic. I also think that it is wise to have regularly, in a regular interval, a stakeholder group for assessing, well, the competencies represented by the individual study programs from the perspective of industry. However, I also would like to say there, of course, you have to be clear that somehow, well, you have to cope with those statements in a way that there is a certain inertia, but not in a negative sense, in a positive sense, in the study programs on the one hand side, and often by recent experiences motivated comments of stakeholders, and then you have to discuss with them and try to find out kind of whether those comments already are in a way well, taking out content of your study programs and bringing in new content. So there the stakeholders are also of high importance. And for our challenges with the students, of course, we try to invite stakeholders from different perspectives. I told you about this Eurotech Collider, who then are members of the jury and bring in various aspects into this discussion. And of course, there are also stakeholders from practice, which are kind of supporting, mentoring the students during the projects. I think there are various possibilities. However, I think there should be a clear communication also to the stakeholders of their role. If I may add one comment, and you can one comment I think is for me seems to be quite important. We have now currently also a discussion among our experienced engineers and also persons who were extremely successful the last 30, 40 years with their companies, that probably there is also a little shift in the stakeholder involvement. Whereas I would say 20 years ago, there was a clear, let's say, communication direction from the experienced one as role models to the students or to the young engineers who were currently on their training on the job.
Okay.
Whereas today, with AI and new technologies, one really has to be aware that the elder ones didn't have an opportunity to acquire competencies apart from that, what they acquired, let's say, what one would state under general education and interests in the field. And therefore, I think the stakeholder involvement will get a completely new dimension. And I could also report on examples there.
Yeah.
There is a mutual benefit now in both directions. On the one hand side, the young students benefiting, of course, from general experiences of very experienced personalities. And on the other hand side, the elder persons benefiting from probably impulses, questions, or putting into question value creation processes or processes in general by the students. And we have to create a breeding ground that this communication works in both directions. And this will be a completely new setup, I would say, or completely is probably exaggerated, but quite a new setup in the training on the job and in the first years of young engineers in companies. And if they bring their competencies of interdisciplinary communication, etc., into the companies, I think that could be quite for benefit for all of them in order to transform also value creation process.
No, this is really interesting, actually, because I know in talking to a lot of people around the world when they talk about stakeholder engagement, there's a challenge sometimes to encourage industry people or people from different sectors to come in, because they say, what's in it for me? You know, what am I getting out of this this experience? I'm just giving up time. Whereas what you're suggesting here is now that the people in industry, the senior people like us who are older with a lot of great life experience, are actually going to learn something from the students that they interact with.
We just, well, go around in the classical disciplines, not just in engineering, but in classical disciplines, where can AI change value creation? Or large language models change value creation, and you get one can immediately be it a doctor in medicine, or be it somebody who makes reports on damages of buildings, or somebody who makes bridge inspections by pictures, or a radiologist. You can list a lot of things which will, or has already, but to a large extent will change value creation processes. And I can report on an example where 4 students from computer science, master students, made a project, a challenge for some industry partner. And after the challenge, the industry partner said, well, I have to rethink my business model for the future. even though the students didn't have any idea of the business model. They just made one part of it in AI assisted value creation.
But what I find interesting about this is that students will then get to learn in these conversations what are some of the pain points in different work environments, whether it's in the medical setting or whether it's in a factory setting or as you mentioned in a legal setting. So they get to learn the pain points. And as you know, the generation that exists now in the university base are much more, I would argue, much more inquisitive and curious than my generation was when we came through. We took down the notes and we did the assignments, but I think students now are much more interested in the why am I doing, or why are you doing it this way? So I think it's a fascinating approach. And is this evolving, or is this something that you've been doing for a long time, or is this relatively new, this kind of stakeholder engagement, the way you're describing it now?
Well, I think we had a kind of a pilot, which is a scholarship program for students called Zum Junge Akademie, where we actually pilot such topics. And since now 20 years, students work on holistic projects in open solution spaces, etc. And we also have in our entrepreneurship department those pilots of challenge-based learning, where they actually then make a setup in the scope of new ideas, putting them in ideas that probably can be placed on the market a little in the direction of a minimum viable product or something like that.
Yep.
They can develop. And we also have in the scope of our quality management system, of course, this stakeholder involvement always embedded. But I would say also in the view of with the let's say associations of engineers, we have that there is an increasing awareness there that these processes have to be changed. And I think the motivation that you just described, what's my personal benefit from that? This motivation, well, is based on an assumption I just give and I don't receive.
Mm-hmm.
And this is probably changing.
That's really fascinating.
I think it has changed. Well, who can bring the new technologies into the companies if not the students who have made an investment of, let's say, 3,000 hours or more into this acquisition of competencies, which an elder person who, well, didn't have the chance to learn it at university because the technology didn't exist in his time, never could invest. Yeah.
Thanks, Gerhard. Thanks for being with us today. That brings us to the end of today's episode of Quanser Café. Today we've learned how collaborative efforts between industry, academia, and communities are not only enriching the educational landscape, but also preparing students to tackle real-world challenges with confidence and creativity. The discussions around the K2I Academy's transformative impact and the evolving relationship between seasoned engineers and new graduates remind us that fostering a culture of learning and innovation is essential in our ever-changing world. As we move forward, it's crucial that we continue to cultivate these partnerships and listen to the diverse voices that shape our engineering ecosystem. Stay tuned for our next episode, where we'll explore embedding an interdisciplinary approach in engineering education. We're keen to hear your thoughts about the season or potential topics or guests to feature in future episodes. Please leave comments or connect with me on LinkedIn. And to learn more about Quanser, visit quanser.com. I'm Paul Gilbert, and this is the Quanser Café. Thank you so much for listening. Goodbye.